Okay. Well, Officer McClaughry, just your reaction to today's verdict.
Relief. You know, it's been a long time.
What's it been like the last almost 3 years for you?
Well, you can't really describe it. You know, everybody did just a fantastic job for me and the family, and everybody knows who they are and all that. And it's just trying to figure out, you know, all of those basic questions that you try to come up with. The one thing that I do want to make clear is that, you know, despite everything that goes on, and everybody knows what had happened, so I don't need to rehash it here, and I don't want that. But the one thing that I just want to make sure that it's clear for everybody, really do, it might be in furtherance of the miracle, or it might be other things, but it really demonstrates to me how somebody from a foreign country like China, in Dr. Cho, and somebody from the United States, in Dr. Ellen Bogan, can put aside all those ideological differences and everything else to just come together to save a human being's life. That to me is what makes it very special. And I think that's the most telling aspect of everything that happened here. So I just want that to be out there. You know, Dr. Cho and Dr. Ellen Bogan, they did all they could. And I think that the takeaway for everybody should be that those two individuals, men of science, men of medicine, doesn't matter to them. They've got a human being and they're involved in probably the most rigorous, the most delicate, the most challenging of all surgeries, that of the human brain, living human brain. And they were able to communicate back and forth somehow. And that's where it all began. When I heard the word agreed, you know, when you hear that, you know, it doesn't go away. So you never forget those things. You know, you never forget those things. So I just want everybody here to make sure that they understand just how wide this whole thing came together with, and to make sure that they understand that, you know, pause and think, and even this life, you know, because of them, and because of obviously a miracle, I get to hopefully get to see a big event next year, you know, and I'm looking forward to that quite a bit.
Is that your daughter's wedding?
Yes, it is.
Your eyesight has been improving.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. And that's part of the problem that I've got right now is I want to see everybody so much, and as it continues to improve, you know, it causes a certain amount of vestibular reaction, but at the same time, it causes me to stop just to try to make out what I'm seeing, and you know, it's just fantastic. You know, I go to the gym and I swim, and I figured out, you know, even on a backstroke, how to be able to do that. And I couldn't have done that without help. I have my best friend for that. But at the same time, if I hadn't been able to go to the gym to do this, it just, to me, it's just all part of the same thing. So it's you can't sit here in the space of any sort of news conference or any sort of after affair to display just how huge it's been. I'm just very, very glad. So.
You've been obviously physically changed by this whole thing, but what about emotionally, spiritually? How has this impacted you?
Well, I think that with everybody, you know, you as far as, you know, the spiritual aspect is concerned, I have my own way of talking to the good Lord, and I do that quite regularly. It's the acceptance of all of that, the reality of all of that. That's what's really, really, that's a revelation that you just go, So it's all coming together, but it's very good. Anyway.
Do you think this closure is going to help you be able to move forward?
Yes. I mean, the phrase absolutely comes to place, but yes.
How so?
Well, I don't have to think about it anymore. I don't have to wonder when. I can now begin to just move on to other things and not have to worry about this, hanging around anymore. And I think it's also good for everybody else. My gosh, it's been an impact on everybody, the community, everybody, and they'll remember it. That's fine, but now they can remember it as being concluded, and we can all do so much better.
I know you're a guy who kind of likes to look at the positive, find the positive in things, and what if anything, can you find as positive out of this experience?
Well, like I said before, the biggest positive that comes out of this, for me, is how people can work together in the most intensive, the most invasive, the most delicate of all surgeries, and can work together that way. And then, again, it's also, that's one, and then the other, well, when it takes a miracle, I think that also establishes to some extent why we all need to have our own way of thanking the Lord.
You have some very altruistic, universal messages.
I'm sorry, one more time.
You have some very altruistic, universal messages, and it's really refreshing to hear. Would you have anything you would want to say to Ernesto Rivas? Any message for him?
Right now, no, I'm done. I want to forget anything about that. And if anybody else wants to remember, that's fine. But for me, I just assume, we're inexorably intertwined in that fashion. I get that, but I'm done.
Do you forgive him?
That's not up to me. That really isn't up to me. Okay? That's up to someone else. And he can figure that out.
In a society that's, polarizing with officers' interaction sometimes
Yes.
with people, and, many officers running into situations like you did that day. What would be your message to someone who perhaps would choose what he did? What would be your message to the future so that you're thankfully your name's on a plaque, you're here?
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to repeat it one more time.
What would
I got to turn my hearing
What would
aids
be your
on.
message to the people like him that shot?
People like
him,
Rivas?
Like Rivas. If they run into an officer, in the field like this, that to not shoot, to do something else. What would be your message to
Well, the message is that what are you doing with this in your hand to start with? There is no reason in my mind that if someone's out there with a handgun, that unless, of course, it's in defense of self, but if you're out there, you're going to end up paying for it if it's a situation that either spiritually or otherwise. So you're going to have when you decide to take a life, you have to have a very, very strong and very, very firm and very, very ethical character to be able to come with this. And you're going to have to understand that no matter what, it's going to end up being reviewed. And the standard is pretty high because you've taken a life. And it's not easy to do those kinds of things. It's that way for a reason. I think there's other things we can do. you know, there's been a lot of talking about, you know, gun control. And I've always thought that gun control is what we practice at the range under different conditions. But I think that there's ways to be able to correct those problems. And, you know, I don't know what platform I want to use for that. You know, the guns that were used, I think, were destroyed. And that to me sounds like an appropriate way of getting rid of weapons that are confiscated, that have lost their owners. You know, gun shops are out there to buy more. But in this case, and in others, when law enforcement comes across all of these firearms, you know, through whether they're found property or whether they're what shall we say, recovered as a result of a seizure, or however they're found within the law enforcement spectrum, it's my opinion that if they're found, then there's ways in which to deal with it. And if they've lost their owners, ultimately they get destroyed. The weaponry that flows back and forth across this country like a tide is incredible, and they're very powerful, and they don't stop by just a wall or anything else. They travel through metal, depending on the kind of metal. It's a complex and huge problem, but at the same time, it's one that I think we can handle, but there has to be the resolve to do so. And in my opinion, one way to do that is, of course, if your gun is not where it's supposed to be, that is in either your possession or in your control some way, and you've lost it somehow, or it's lost the owner, then get rid of it. Get destroyed. So, anyway.
Mike, I'm sorry, did you have something?
No, I just, one more question. I'm going to have to probably end it.
You had, you actually knew Ernesto Rivas.
I did.
It came out during the trial that during his standoff, he was actually asking to talk to you, apparently not knowing that he had shot you. It appears that you guys kind of had a trusting relationship, that you could walk up to his door and knock on it and ask for information. When you found out that it was him who shot you, what was your reaction?
Boy, it's been so long. I'm trying to remember just exactly how that played out. In the condition that I was in at that time that I found out, I don't think that I had all my cognitive functions then. I was very weak, both from a physical standpoint, but at the same time, I didn't have a real complete understanding of a lot of other issues that were going on at the same time. And yeah, so, okay.
Rich, so what happens?
Troubled a lot of ways over this. Yeah. Anyway.
Rich, just, you know, the you've worked a lot of cases over the years, but how does this one work?
This is right up there. You know, this was a very satisfying case. You know, there's been 3 or 4 that Ms. Kahola-Kula and I have tried together. think you probably sat in on most of them. And, it's very satisfying. I think this is probably as satisfying as any of them. They all involve very heinous, calculated, things. Normal society. So we are very, very happy with this. I'm sorry that it took so long, but sometimes good things take time. And
Did you guys know each other prior to ever coming across each other?
yeah, I mean, he's been an officer and almost as long as I've been a lawyer. So yeah, we would come across each other at times. So yes, I'm aware of Mick and the good work he did for the city of Mount Vernon.
Mean a little bit more to you to be able to bring the man who shot him?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think Ms. Kahola Koo and I both feel the same, and I know she put in a yeoman's job. She frankly did more work on this case than I, and a lot of the credit just goes to her. But yeah, we both felt very, very satisfied with this verdict.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Enjoy the wedding.
Thank you.